Hello, and welcome to this first edition of Thoughts on Change with me, Kelly Mallory. I wanted to try something new with sharing some stories of my experiences as a change agent over the last 10 years. So I will be sharing a video once per week to share my lessons learned. So let's get into this first one. I would like to start with a story about my beautiful stepdaughter, Claire. So one day, I am driving home from a moderately stressful day of work, and about 5 minutes from the house, I start to dread getting home to whatever mess my youngest stepdaughter, Claire, has made in the house. And the things going through my head are things like, I just want to get home and relax. I don't want to have to deal with a mess. I really hope that there's nothing wrong. And I get home and I walk into the kitchen and I am stopped dead in my tracks because across the kitchen counter are glasses of water filled with dissolvable packing peanuts. And it's obvious that Claire is trying some kind of experiment. And gosh, I really wish that I had responded in a way like, "Oh, great, you're practicing science. I love it." Especially as a person who practices and coaches that kind of thinking. But instead, I stopped and I could slowly feel my blood pressure rising from my toes all the way to my head, and I honestly thought steam might come out of my ears. And the thoughts that happened were things like, I've told her a million times, why can't she listen? Why can't she just do what I ask her to? She must not respect me. She must not be listening. What an inconsiderate kid, and on and on and on. And my husband noticed that I'm just kind of bricked. I'm standing still in the kitchen staring at the counter, and he came over and to check in and asked me, "Hey, what's going on? Are you okay?" And I lost it. I said, "Can you believe what she did here? Look at this. This is unacceptable. I can't believe she would do this." And he very gently put his hand on my shoulder and cut me off. And he said, "She's 9. What do you expect?" And in that moment, it was like a slap to the face. And this experience was one that taught me one of the most valuable lessons that I have learned so far in life, in step parenting, and as a change agent and change leader. And I realized here that I was part of the reason. I was part of why Claire wasn't changing her behavior. It was my fault that she didn't want to change. Let's look at another example of how this happens. Can you spot the difference in these two photos? So this is a little bit of a trick. There's nothing actually different with the circumstances here. They're both the same sink full of dirty dishes. The difference is in how I thought about and responded to the sink being full of dirty dishes. In the first image, I thought things like, wow, you guys couldn't have done any of these? You're so inconsiderate. You must not care about having a clean house or how I feel coming into this. And with these thoughts, how do you think I would act toward them? Yeah, I'd be frustrated, resentful, angry. And then, because I'm that way, they would probably respond with similar reactions of frustration, resentment, and anger. And this creates a negative, vicious cycle. Now, let's imagine a different circumstance. So, in the second image, I chose to look at the situation differently. And here's the key: I chose to assume positive intent. So, this time, I thought, wow, they must have been in a rush to leave all these dishes in the sink. You know what? I will help them out. Now, in this situation, I'm more open to the idea that they did not do this with malicious intent, and so there must have been a different reason for them to leave the sink in this condition. And notice the change in tone of my response. This would lead me to feel neutral or maybe even positive toward the sink fillers, and would probably lead to a neutral or positive cycle instead of a negative one. And this applies to change efforts at work as well. When people don't follow this new way or do what we want or ask, we have the same choice, right? Do we treat them like scenario one, Or scenario 2. With Claire, I was reacting like scenario 1. I was impatient and frustrated with her. And this came out in my interaction. She got this kind of response from me and obviously naturally didn't want to do what I told her to. And she, in turn, felt resentment and anger. And when I realized how I was contributing to her reaction, I worked really hard to make a shift. I practiced a few key things. I practiced assuming positive intent, reframing the situation, and choosing a different response. And now, I don't come home to a mess as much. And when I do, we have a much more positive conversation that leaves us both smiling. And in fact, I am not perfect at this practice, but I continue to do this because the first time I was going to shoot this video, I was set up in the kitchen and my husband walked in and totally blew it up. And I had a very strong emotional response. I was frustrated and angry and upset. And instead of exploding at him, which is what I probably would have done a few years ago, I followed these next steps that I'm going to share because this can happen for you too. You can practice this and you can choose a more positive response and therefore a more positive reaction from who you're working with. So here are your next steps to practice this. First, when you face someone resisting your change or just not doing what you're asking, pause. Just pause for a moment instead of immediately responding. You can take a breath or count, whatever works for you, but just pause. Then shift to assuming positive intent. This person is probably not doing this to intentionally make you angry, right? People are generally good. So reframe and think that they are doing this with positive intent. And then last, reframe the situation and choose a different reaction. Instead of getting angry, try instead to get curious about what happened and what might have led them to take this action if they are having positive intent and trying to do the right thing. And this is exactly what I did yesterday. I paused when my husband disrupted and I had all these horrible emotions. That pause was very long. I had to go for a walk. But during that, I rethought that, he wasn't trying to mess me up. He was just trying to do his normal day-to-day things. And he probably didn't know that it was so disruptive. And so when I came back, I reframed and we had a much better conversation about it than we probably would have if I had blown up at him. And so I'd ask you to give this a try and please let me know how it goes. Let me know what works for you, what doesn't work for you, so we can continue to build skills together to make change better. Thanks for watching.